ये स्टार्ट कर दिया वही क्यों से
You up there? Don't forget. I want to take one.
Namaste everyone. Namaste, everyone. Third try. Namaste, everyone.
Namaste.
Thank you so much for gathering with us today. Before we start our program and we go into why we're here today, we'd like to have the children of the Kashmiri Indian community to come up here to open up the program with the national anthem. Kids, can you join us? Or teenagers, I'm sorry if I called you kids, but we'll have a representative of the community join us. Yeah, they're definitely teenagers. Correction.
What is this sound? Maybe this looking at it. Wait. Let the audio just open up.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave. Jana Gana Mana Adhinayaka Jaya He Bharat Bhagya Vidhata Punjab Sindh Gujarat Maratha Dravid Uttar Banga Vindhya Himachal Yamuna Ganga उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तब शुभ नामे जागे तब शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तब जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय हे Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavamahe Tejasvina तमस्तु मा विद्विषावहैः ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. May we all come together. May our togetherness nourish each other spiritually. May we all have the courage to do the righteous deeds. Whatever we say may be brilliant and inspiring. May we never lose each other in conflicts and quarrels. We pray for peace within our body. We pray for peace within our mind. We pray for peace within our soul. Tvameva mata cha pita tvameva Tvameva bandhuscha sakha tvameva Tvameva vidya dravinam tvameva Tvameva sarvam mama deva deva. Thou art my father, thou art my mother, thou art my friend and relative. Thou art all the knowledge and wealth one needs. My Lord, thou art everyone and everything for me. Mukum karoti vachalam pangam langayate girim yat kripatamaham bande paramananda madhavam. The merciful one with whose grace a dumb mute can speak and a lame person can climb a hill, with whose grace you and I are blessed, that blissful one is the Lord himself. Kayena vacha manisendriyeva buddhyatmana prakrite svabhava karomi yadyat sakalam parasmai narayanayeti samarpayami. Whatever actions I perform with my body, whatever I speak and whatever I think, whatever my senses and my thoughts prompt me to do, and whatever I do, it is because it is innate to my nature. All these actions I dedicate to thee, my merciful Lord.
Thank you so much. These are the children of our community, and we're so proud of them to come up here and stir us with emotion in the way they sang the national anthems of the countries that have become their home to their parents. And the prayers that you heard, I'm so glad you did the translation for our guests today to know that this is the foundation and the values of our culture. And this is where we come from when we speak to others and how we embrace others. So today is a somber day for most of us, a somber anniversary, 33 years. And most of you know why you're here, but this event today is in honor of the Kashmiri Hindus who were forced to leave their homeland due to the ethnic cleansing and terrorism on January 19, 1990, 33 years ago. We're gathering today as a community to support an uprooted, besieged community that needs safe rehabilitation, a voice, freedom, and the ability to practice their way of life without fear of persecution, without fear of death. We will be joined today by members of our community, leaders in this community, who have formed organizations to support causes that can enable this community. We are joined by public officials who find it necessary to join us today to learn about our plight, to learn about our struggle, to learn about the ongoing issues is why we're here today. To create awareness, to share, to educate, and most importantly, to stop this horrific genocide that has happened for the last 33 years. And so today you may hear from people that may touch your heart. You may hear from people who are passionate. You may hear from people who have experienced this firsthand. And the whole point of being here today is to take what you hear into your heart, into your minds, and let it become actionable so that you can be a voice for those who don't have one. On that note, we'll introduce our guest. I believe first we're going to start with the video. Are we starting with the video first? So the video you're about to watch is a congressional hearing by a woman named Sunanda Vashisht. And she is speaking on behalf of the Kashmiri people. She's speaking on behalf of advocacy. She's speaking on behalf of the people that don't have a voice to reach a government that can help in what's going on. And she spoke up in Congress, and this is what she had to say. Please listen in.
Human Rights Commission for inviting me to testify here as a witness. Honorable members of the Tom Lantos Commission, I speak before you the last words of Daniel Pearl in my own words. My father is a Kashmiri Hindu, my mother is a Kashmiri Hindu, I am a Kashmiri Hindu, and our home and lives in Kashmir were destroyed by radical Islamic terrorism. As I begin to speak, I am choked. As I begin to speak, I'm choked by the thoughts of those voices I represent here because their voices were extinguished in the most brutal fashion. I am a member of the minority Hindu community from Kashmir, victim of the worst ethnic cleansing witnessed in independent India. I speak here today because I am a survivor. An innocent young woman, a lab assistant in a school, wasn't as lucky as I was. She was abducted, blindfolded, gang raped, and cut into two halves on a mechanical saw while still alive. Her name was Girija Tikku. Her only crime, her faith. I am her voice today. I am also the voice of young Kashmiri Hindu engineer who was hunted by terrorists, again for his faith. When terrorists came to kill him, he hid inside a rice container in his attic, and he would have been alive today had his location not been disclosed to the terrorists by his own neighbors. His neighbors he trusted, neighbors that we trusted. The terrorists shot him through the container and forced his wife to eat the blood-soaked rice. His name was B.K. Ganju. His crime is faith. I speak for him today. I could go on and on. We have seen ISIS level of horror and brutality in Kashmir 30 years before the West was even introduced to the brutalities of radical Islamic terror. I'm glad these hearings are happening today because when my family and I lost our homes, our livelihood, and our way of life, the world remained silent. Where were the advocates of human rights when my rights were taken away? Where were they on the night of 19th January 1990 when there were voices blaring from all mosques in Kashmir that they wanted Kashmir with Hindu women but without Hindu men? Where were the saviors of humanity when my feeble old grandfather stood with 2 kitchen knives and an old rusted axe, ready to kill my mother and I in order to save us from the much worse fate that awaited us if we landed in the hands of terrorists on the same fateful night? My people were given 3 choices: flee, convert, or die. Around 400,000 Kashmiri Hindus fled right after that night of horror. They survived. Those who didn't were killed. Today, 30 years later, I'm still not welcome in my home in Kashmir. I am not allowed to follow my faith without fear. My house in Kashmir is illegally occupied as those of countless others in my community. Those that are not occupied have mostly been burned down or are ransacked. Thousands of our temples have been vandalized, desecrated, and lay in ruins. Every effort has been made to eradicate Hinduism from Kashmir. Today, Kashmir is home to only one religion. This is by design and is the ultimate violation of human rights. Diversity and acceptance of different views are not the norm in today's Kashmir. It's not just Hindus that have been ethnically cleansed. Sikhs have been massacred. A fatwa was announced against Christian schools in Kashmir, accusing them of luring Muslims to Christianity. What human rights are we talking about when all minorities have either been driven out or silenced? An Islamist state of Kashmir where other religions are not welcome and tolerance of any other viewpoint is absent is no citadel of human rights. This is the society that is being created by Kashmir by those who are talking about human rights. Terrorism, ladies and gentlemen, is the ultimate opponent of human rights. Human rights cannot and should not take precedence over human life. Everyone who stands for freedom, liberty, and right to life should worry about radicalization that fuels terror. A 65-year-old shopkeeper, Ghulam Muhammad Mir, gets killed by the terrorists because he opened his shop to earn his livelihood. Truck drivers and apple traders are shot dead by terrorists for simply wanting to earn their livelihood. The simple act of earning livelihood in Kashmir today is prohibited by terrorists because earning a livelihood would show that Kashmir is moving towards normalcy. I ask you, who are these people who fear normalcy in Kashmir? Who are these people who talk about human rights but fear free movement, free thought, and the right to earn livelihood? Abrogation of Article 370 that has raised so much concern around the world is in fact a restoration of human rights. Indian Constitution, which is modeled on the US Constitution.
Would you give me a path forward?
Yes. The path forward is we are dealing with Islamist terror in Kashmir. We have to be cognizant of this fact. Why is it that nobody on this panel except me talked about Islamist terror? Is Islamist terror a figment of my imagination? Well, no, it isn't. How many people have been killed by terrorists? Since August 5, not one person has been killed by security forces. All deaths have happened because of the terrorists trained by Pakistan. Why is it that nobody has mentioned this?
We have mentioned
this double-speak, Congresswoman. This double-speak is not helping India when they are combating terrorists.
You are on the record and you're speaking about it, and we're giving you the forum. So in this before my time is yielded, can you give me a sentence of a path forward, please?
The sentence of the path forward is we have to assist India in eradicating Islamist terror. Islamist terror, that is when the human rights situation will be possible.
If you were to visualize Sunanda's, the message that she had there, there's a movie that came out recently called Kashmir Files. It, people say it's a story, it's a movie, go out and see this movie. We use the word story so freely, but it's the life of these people, and she is sharing that with Congress in the deepest, passionate way, most passionate way possible. And this is what we'd like to see more of. Whether you speak up to your local council, whether you speak up to your local congressman, wherever it needs to go, this is the voice that we want all of us to have. And if you haven't seen that movie, please watch it, because it gives you a true visual of what she's talking about, that the Kashmiri people have experienced. Next, we'd like to introduce a few guests. And the first guest is Dr. Shashi Razdan. She is a Kashmiri Pundit, and she has pointedly shared her story with others before. She's very passionate about it, and wanted to share some more with you today. And Dr. Shashi.
Thank you for the hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Those words were spoken with a lot of passion, and I must say that they resonate with each one of us who has experienced terrorism and has lived to tell our stories. So kudos to Sunanda for speaking openly and with all that passion. Whenever we reflect on the events leading up to our most recent exodus and its aftermath, we tend to invariably focus on extraneous factors such as religious bigotry, political complicity, and media apathy. This is all well and good. However, the role that members of our own community at large has played in its decimation is largely ignored. This was illustrated amply following the release of the Kashmir files last year, when some of the elite and woke KP critics in India and elsewhere dismissed the film as a work of pure fiction and propaganda just because the movie depicted our oppressors in a less than flattering light. This kind of downplaying and gaslighting has been going on before, during, and events of 33 years ago, rubbing salt into the have lived and suffered through those turbulent times. Leaders like Shivaji, we got a collection of assorted giants who, for petty benefits and short-term gains, sided with our tormentors. The negating of our lived experience, nationally and internationally, by our brethren is not just soul-destroying, but provides cover as well as validation to our persecutors, enabling them to justify and carry on their nefarious activities without ever being held to account. Most people seem to think that Kashmir is an isolated case. However, widespread ethnic cleansing of Hindus in the villages of West Bengal and other border states of India over the last decade indicates otherwise. India could even be excused for its inability to deal with the Islamists in its midst, as the population is too diverse and therefore may be incohesive. But what excuse do the Western countries have? Those of us who escaped to the West did so in the belief that we would be protected under existing laws if we simply kept our heads down and went about our business. Much to our surprise and dismay, we now find that the forces responsible for our exile are flourishing here also. While the Wokarati are fighting over gender-neutral pronouns in bathrooms, a seismic demographic shift is taking place across the country. Bloc voting is ensuring the entry of Islamists into the higher echelons of power, where they can modify existing laws or implement new legislation as and when required. This has already happened with the call to prayer broadcast in Minneapolis and animal sacrifices in private residency in Hamtramck, Michigan. Judging by the current demographic trends, this will be replicated sooner rather than later along the length and breadth of this country. No-go areas in large European cities are not a figment of imagination of some people. They exist. But the liberal media elite is trying to keep a lid on things and largely succeeding in the UK, France, and Germany. Italy and Sweden have bucked the trend and voted differently this time in response to a sharp increase in criminality driven by men from the Middle East and North Africa. Naturally, any discussion about such developments is impossible, as it would be branded Islamophobic. We have now come full circle. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance, a quote attributed to Thomas Jefferson and well worth pondering over. The freedoms that we take for granted in the West are slowly being eroded and sacrificed at the altar of political correctness. It took 500 years for Rome to fall, but this is the age of social media, and the pace is therefore accordingly accelerated. Before we know it, the choice of Relyuv, Galyuv, ya Tsalyuv will be put to us here. Where do we escape to then? I leave you all with that question. Jai Hind, God bless America.
Thank you, Dr. Rostan. The next person that we'd like to introduce, but before I actually introduce them, just to piggyback on what Dr. Rostan just said, this is why we live in America. This is why we chose to come to this country. This is why our ancestors came here, to be offered the opportunity to exercise the freedoms that we have, freedom of religion, freedom of faith, freedom in whatever we believe. And I believe you hit the point, the nail right on the head by saying there's so much social media that we could use and we can learn to use to get the word out. So what's happened in the East does not happen in the West. Our next speaker is no stranger to the community. He is a Kashmiri Pandit himself as well, a community leader and an advocate, a passionate advocate for all things Hinduism in our community. Dr. Shekhar, please join us.
This is indeed a somber day for us, as was enumerated in the video and Shashiji has pointed out. An entire ethnic community was forced out 33 years ago from Kashmir. But mind you, that wasn't the first time that it happened. I think it's important for us to recognize the whole sequence. Kashmir is a landlocked place up north of India and has very limited access to the rest of the world, had before especially. Kashmir was 100% populated by Hindus. That was the total population. As a matter of fact, Kashmir was the center of civilization for Hinduism. Great saints from India would go to Kashmir to learn about Hinduism. And all was normal up until around 500 years ago, when the Islamists of that time from Central Asia invaded Kashmir. Mind, it was not a time when you had the internet. There was no CNN. And at that time, Kashmiri Hindus were given only 3 choices, which was on the flyer. That either you blend with the larger Islamic society, get converted, or you leave this place, run away from it, or we'll kill you. Given that dire choice at that time, many people left, but a large number of them had to accept for survival conversion. So the maximal Muslim population that you see in Kashmir today are converted people, under force, under duress. They say only 11 families survived. And those Kashmiri Hindus you see now are the descendants of those families. But it didn't stop there. Since then, there have been at least, the last one was the 7th exodus, when Kashmiri Hindus were driven from their homeland. This entire saga has been unnoticed because those days there was no internet, there was no TV, but a genocide did happen. And subsequent to that, there has been effort at ethnic cleansing. As was pointed out, there are people, there are vested interests that want to see Kashmir purely an Islamic state, where it actually belonged to India for thousands of years and actually was the center where Hinduism was. How many of you have heard that? No one. Talking about 500 years ago. 30 years ago, when this was happening, even in India, people didn't know about it. There was a silence. But we cannot be silent anymore. Not just for us, because we are reduced to now such a negligible minority that this culture may not survive anymore. Most of the people have gone to different parts of the world, different parts, and they get blended into local cultures, and we are losing it. Very few are left. But this could happen anywhere in the world if we accomplish it. Any kind of radical fanaticism is dangerous, and we have seen the example of it. We have seen this in our own country, 9/11. What did those people do? What was wrong? Those people are working in the towers, they come and just wipe them out. This kind of fanaticism is not just danger to us, and we have experienced it, it's danger to the entire humanity. We are gathered here today that humanity should wake up to the dangers of such fanatic vision where it is our way or highway and nobody else can exist. No roof like accommodation. And unless, as was pointed out, we stand together, we recognize the terror. We cannot be complicit about it. It is not, you can't be sitting down in a circle about to bite you and kill you. We're not against any particular group, any against particular faith, against any religion. We are against terrorism. We are against fanaticism, wherever it comes from. And we all know where the current center of fanaticism is in the world and where it is coming from. So I hope that what has happened to us is a reminder for not just the rest of India, but the rest of the humanity, that we must stand against, that never again will a community be wiped out from this planet, as we are about to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shaker. I learned something today. I had no idea there was 7
Yes, this
exoduses.
is 7th exodus.
How many of you learned that today?
Yeah.
I'm glad that the kids in the back are raising their hands too. So it's definitely a learning experience. Every time we have an event like this, I remember the first one that I attended was in 2020 at the Freedom Tower in Miami. And I learned so much from that event and attending and hearing Dr. Razdan's story the first time and others speak. And every time there's something new that you learn. So I thank you so much for teaching us that today and reminding us why we need to take those steps to prevent this from happening. And for our guest today, Louis is here today. Louis is a councilman in the city of Plantation, recently won his seat. And Tom Fabrizio is a state rep who's with us today at District 110. And for those of you who are attending, and if there's others, I'm sorry if I missed you. But you're here today because we want you to listen to why the story isn't just a story, but the political emphasis that we want to make today, because I think this is where our voice is going, in the direction of having politicians like you who represent us locally to be a voice and having a change and to take that to higher office so that there could be a change, just like the young woman passionately shared and Dr. Razdan passionately shared. So it's not about just telling the story over and over and gathering in these small groups like Dr. Shaker said to express and to mourn the loss, but really make a difference in the steps we take forward from this moment. The next person that will be speaking today is the founder of the Kashmiri Hindu Foundation, Kashmiri Pandit, and a community leader and a huge advocate for everything Kashmiri, and the person who I respect so much for representing his community in this way and putting this gathering together. Deepa Ganju, can you come up and speak, please? Thank you.
Yeah, hi, namaskar everybody. I'm so glad that you all are here. And as you have heard from the previous speakers, Kashmir is a forgotten story for the rest of the world. Nobody knows about us anymore, and nobody cares about us anymore. We lost our home, we lost our ancestry, and we are scattered all over the globe. Some in India, some came here. But we want to go back to our motherland. We have two situations in this world. One is the outside world that should know that radical Islam is the problem. Radical Islam, we have to confront that. Recently, you know that Ilhan Omar, one of the congresswomen in US Congress, said about the 9/11 that some people did something. Some people. She cannot say that these are Islamic terrorists. 2,977 people died on that day, and she said some people did something. That is the sort of thing that we have to confront with. And we have to tell the world that the problem that erupted in Kashmir can erupt here also. I recently went to India about 3 months ago. I visited Kashmir and I visited my home. I would just like to tell you a small clip of my home, which was hustling and bustling. And you can see in that small, it's just a 1 minute short clip. I would like you to see that this is the condition of my home in Kashmir, which, as Sunanda said, is illegally occupied by a Kashmiri Muslim. It was hard when we went to Kashmir and to see our home in that condition. And this is not only my home. Most of the homes in Kashmir are like that. Because when we left in 1989, we had no choice but to leave. In 1989, the first killing was Tikalal Taplu, who was killed in Kashmir. He was a BJP leader. That was 33 years ago. But that killing is still continuing. Even recently, we have witnesses. Dr. Shekhar and my wife Chandra, their uncle was killed in broad daylight in Kashmir. He was a IS officer. He was going to a radio station, and he was killed when he was entering in his jeep. He was killed point blank by Islamic terrorists. I have here in recently Mr. Makhanlal Bindru, his his is here, Kalpana Suri. She is the witness how it happened. You can see in my home. Yeah, this was a short clip I just wanted to tell you and show to you that how home of Kashmiri Pandit is in Kashmir today. We have to fight with even our own government of India because we are some small minority and they don't care about us because we are not a vote bank. In Kashmir, the Kashmiri Muslims, they do targeted killings. Even recently, Mr. Rahul Bhatt was killed only because he happened to be a Hindu. And government of India at this time is more concerned about showing to the world that everything is hunky-dory, everything is normal in Kashmir. But it is not normal. It is not normal for us. It's not normal for a Kashmiri Hindu. You can go and visit Kashmir as a tourist. They will love you because you'll spend money. You'll stay in their houseboats. You'll go to the hotels. You'll spend money. They will love you. They won't kill a tourist. But as soon as you want to live there, as soon as you want a Kashmiri Hindu wants to settle there, he is the target. He will be killed. The killing 33 years ago, we had to leave our homes, but the killing is still continuing in Kashmir. So we have to realize that what is the problem. Unless until we know the problem, we cannot have any solution. The problem is radical Islamic terrorism. Unless until we know it, we cannot solve it. So we all should know what has happened in Kashmir. My son is here. He was 6-year-old when we left our home in Kashmir. His toys, when we were leaving, we told him, don't worry, we are going to come back soon. We have not gone back to Kashmir from that day onwards. His toys are vanished, but our dreams and our hopes have not vanished. We are going to go back to Kashmir one day. but we have to fight for our cause. And the gathering like these are very important. And we have been fighting for the last 33 years, but the fight continues, the fight goes on. And one day we will definitely conquer that. One day we will definitely go back to Kashmir, we'll settle in Kashmir the way we were living there previously. We may be anywhere in the world, but our home is in Kashmir. Like Jews, their home is in Israel. They may be here, they may be well settled in this country, but they always relate to their home. So our roots are in Kashmir. We may be here, we may be progressing here, but our roots are in Kashmir, and we are going to go back to our Kashmir one day. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepakji. I'm still stuck on the video of your home, your beautiful home that you left behind. And I'm sure many of us would love to see Nihar one day, where is he? Would love to see you step foot in your father's homeland, just like he said. I'm sure Louis can relate to this, just like the Jewish people of America, Jewish Americans, they call Israel home, and they always take their children there as, a pilgrimage to go back to their motherland. So I'm sure for those of you who want to take your children back to Kashmir one day, for them to see where you grew up and where you came from is so important. And this is why you might be wondering, for those of you who are wondering, why is it so important for people to hold on to a culture? Why is it that this small population is so, adamant about holding on to their cultural values? Because this is their identity. All of us, this is what makes this country so beautiful. All of us can come from anywhere in the world, but what America allows us to do is to really exert our religious, our cultural, our identity wherever we come from. So Nihar, I'm sure we're going to see that happen one day, and your dad's dream will come true. Our next speaker I'd like to introduce is a leader in the Hindu community as well, a big advocate of Hinduism. Actually, he's Mr. Hinduism himself, as his daughter describes him. Always on the forefront of leading us anything that will move our community forward. And he's also is the one that introduced and brought Tom here today to speak with us. So Vic Narang, or Vijay Narang, will you kindly join us? Thank you.
The videos that we saw, the speeches that we have heard, you are aware of most of these things, but it's so moving, and sometimes it's difficult to speak after watching these kinds of things, and it's so, it just touches you inside, deep inside, and that's how I feel right now. We live in America, and people, kids, when they wake up thousands of miles away from America, when they think about their future, they want to come to America. Why do they want to come to America? They want to come to America because of these conservative values that this country has been found on. Individual freedom, limited government, rule of law, peace through strength, fiscal responsibility, free markets, human dignity. These are the same values that Hindu civilization has preached over 5,000 years. We talk about acceptance, we don't talk about tolerance. You tolerate something when you don't like, except when you have a large heart and big heart and you're willing to accept everyone and everything. Because you're big enough to be able to absorb those things. You're not small, that only one little thing can go through you. So the values of human dignity, respect for elders, the family values, all these values that Hindu culture taught me and the Indian Hindu culture taught me are the same values that you grow up in America, and therefore it's very difficult for me to not have those conservative values. Hindu values also talk about, there's this word in Sanskrit, Vasudev Kutumbakam, which means that the entire world is my family. And that's how we believe. And by living in America, the opportunity that we have here is amazing. I also, growing up in India as a little kid going to engineering college, I wanted to come to America. It was difficult, but while growing up in India and thinking about coming to America, I'd never thought that when I go there, I want government to pay for my healthcare or my education. I wanted just the opportunity. So sometimes I think, how can an immigrant even think about having the government do things for you? Because that's what the governments all across the country, all across the world promise, and they're never able to deliver. Coming back, today we have a Republican member of the House in Florida, Mr. Fabricio. He is a rising star in the Republican Party in Florida and in South Florida. He was elected to the Florida House in 2020 and re-elected 2022. He lives in Miami Lakes in South Florida. His wife Laura is here as well. They have 2 kids. He currently is the vice chair of the Insurance and Banking Subcommittee, Transportation and Models Subcommittee, Infrastructure Strategies Committee, Judiciary Committee, Ways and Means Committee, Justice Appropriations Subcommittee. The point I'm trying to make is that he's working really hard and he's trying to be in all those committees to be able to serve the people that have elected him. And that's what we are here for. We want to make sure, I mean, these things that you hear, it's passionate, it hurts you, you want to do something, but then you don't know what to do. And one thing that we are realizing today is that, all right, democracy is a very difficult thing. Most countries don't have, India is the largest democracy, America is the oldest democracy, as we say. But democracies are very difficult to maneuver. And as Mr. Ganju said earlier, that we are a very small minority. And in democracy, it's very difficult to be able to make changes. It doesn't matter if something is really bad that is happening. But if you don't have the mass of people supporting you, the representatives that you're going to be electing based on your numbers, you're not going to be able to make any difference. And therefore, it is important for us to be able to do what we are doing today, which is to not only come together, feel the pains of everyone that has gone through it, learn from it, try to do something. And then one something could be, which we are doing quite a bit these days, is to educate, because not everyone can know everything about everywhere what is happening in the world. But it is our responsibility to be able to take the time and make the effort and invite our public representatives to come and learn about what we learned today. And in that regard, I think if we should feel by the end of this session that at least we did something. We had one public representative, we took the effort so that when he goes out there and he hears the other side of the story, at least he would know our side of the story. And when he makes a decision somewhere, he will take all the elements of that equation before he's going to make that decision. So I would like to invite Mr. Fabricio to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Vic Narang is a dear friend, as is his brother, Jay Narang. They've been phenomenal friends and supporters throughout my journey along this legislative process. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for the warm welcome. This has been an educational experience here for me today, because frankly, while I had the geographic knowledge of the area, I certainly didn't have the knowledge of the issues as personally explained by you today. So thank you so much. It's so important to understand that. My thought coming here today and just briefly doing a couple of Google searches before walking in, led me to just, the main thought was religious freedom and the importance of religious freedom, and how this country here was one of the leading reasons why this country here, the United States of America, was originally founded, was for religious freedom. The Pilgrims leaving because they were being persecuted and they wanted to have their religious freedom when they came here. Obviously, it's different from the genocidal issues that your community is facing, but it's extremely valuable for me to learn and understand that going forward. I'm Cuban American. My wife is Cuban American. She was born in Cuba, and our families had to flee Cuba because of a terrible environment where many died as well. So it's your position. While I would tell you that I'm not in your shoes, and I don't think it would be correct for me to say that I understand, but I certainly have an understanding of where you're coming from. And I look forward to learning more and hearing more. I think Vic was being very friendly and disclosing a lot of the political philosophy that I come from, and that's where that is my baseline where I operate from. I do believe in religious freedom. I believe in everything that we have in the Bill of Rights, and I think it's critically important for us to be able to have those rights here in America. And I certainly work to keep furthering that here in the state of Florida. I think we're very lucky in Florida. I'm not going to give you a political speech, but I'm proud to be part of the Florida legislature and the Florida government, and to be able to continue to expand our freedoms. Thank you so much for having me today, and I look forward to in the future continue our conversations. Thank you so much. And I will tell you this, I am so sorry because I am returning to the Florida legislature in Tallahassee today, so I will be going straight from here to the airport. But thank you so much for having me and my lovely wife, who is kind enough to be shuttling me around. I'm beyond blessed to have her in my life. But thank you all so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tom. Before you leave, I would like you to take a moment to at least connect with, we have members of the first ever Hindu American Political Action Committee who are here today representing Hindus in South Florida. There are 50,000 of us here, that they actively go out and look for candidates who are best suited to represent our community. They're sitting at this table. They've done a phenomenal job this election year in really vetting and bringing some quality candidates to the table. And we'd love to see you work, alongside them in making sure that both sides of the aisle is represented for our people. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, thank you.
We love you. Go ahead. Yes, of course. Before we go into our vote of thanks, is there anyone else in the room who would probably like to share a story, or share something from their family, or share anything else that you think it's important for us to leave here with today? Any of the children in the back? My beautiful teenagers, any of you want to share your thoughts and what you've heard today and your takeaway? I'm sorry? Sure, I'm sorry? Oh yeah, Louis, is there anything that you'd like to say today, and maybe address the community from what you've learned today? Louis is, like I said, he sits on the council of the city of Plantation, where I live, and he recently won his election and is determined to really connect and be a friend to this community.
Thank you, everybody. Again, Louis Reinstein. While I'm in the neighboring plantation, it's good to be here and learn with you, and to make friends and to be an ally of yours. Farida mentioned that other than being a city councilman in Plantation, I'm Jewish, and I'm a very proud American Jew. And in hearing some of the struggles that the Hindu community has gone through, it sounds very familiar to me. One where fighting to maintain our homeland against Islamic extremism. It's a fight that we're in this together, and it's a fight that follows us wherever we go. We hear of Hindus being attacked in the streets in America. We hear Jews being attacked in the streets in New York, in Miami, and throughout. And so this is something that we are blessed to be in the United States. But we still care for a place where our forefathers and foremothers call their home. And it's a place that we want to make sure is secure for you, for us, for all of us. Even if we forever plan to stay here, it means that we should forever be free in our homelands. And so that fight, we're in it together. I'm glad to be here, and I look forward to working with you many, many opportunities into the future. Thank you.
And I think this is.
I just want to ask a question, or maybe.
Please come up.
What I want to say is, I'm from India, and as all of us are. And I talked to my family after I saw the film. Actually, some of us know Vivek very well because he was a resident of Florida, and his brother Dinesh, who lived here. And the question I had was, We had so many Kashmiri friends. I knew Dr. Jacob, I knew Dr. Kanju, and we still did not know this. So one vow we all have to take is that anytime anything happens to any of us, we have to talk about it. We have to tell our friends. They will tell their friends. And that's how things will go out. And we will know. So nothing like this will ever happen again. And one thing I'll request all of you is to call our Indian representatives in Congress or even, we don't have a senator from India. Not yet.
Yes.
So we had one who just now is the vice president. We need to call them. People like Pramila Jaipal, people like Ro Khanna. We need to tell them the story because they are voting against 370. Why did we get that passed? And they don't understand it. Or maybe they haven't heard from us. So we, especially you guys, were creating this political action committee or this foundation should have a dialogue with them and tell them and ask them, why are you against it? Tell me, how do you defend yourself? And that's my request.
Thank you, Lalita ji.
Yeah, I would like to clarify one thing. Somebody here was saying that he saw the picture of my home and she was saying that अगर वहाँ पर ऐसे मकान खाली हैं तो हमने तो सुना है कि मुसलमानों ने मकान ऑक्यूपाई किए हैं वहाँ तो all the homes are like that? No. Homes of Hindus या तो उनको जला दिया गया, either they were burnt out or they were occupied. They were paid like 1 crore के मकान को उन्होंने 2000 रुपए दिए, or they were occupied like that, or there are still abandoned homes in Kashmir, like my home. This is the picture of one of the stories of my home. But in my neighborhood, when we went there were a lot of homes which were abandoned, खिड़कियां खुली थी, घर टूटे हुए थे. There are a lot of homes which are abandoned in Kashmir, even now. Because I went in October of last year, 22. So I have first-hand experience what is happening. When you go there, you pass through Kashmir, you cannot recognize that this is the same Kashmir that we left 33 years ago. It has totally changed. There's a lot of development there. But for Kashmiri Hindu, वो हमारे नहीं है. That development is not for us. That development is for Kashmiri Muslims, not for us. Because we cannot settle there, we cannot live there, we cannot do any job there. Recently, there are a lot of killings, there are a lot of targeted killings. हिंदुओं को खड़ा होके आपने सुना होगा स्कूल में खड़ा होके उनका आधार कार्ड मांगा गया और आधार कार्ड के बेसिस पे एक सिख और एक टीचर और दूसरी टीचर को उन्होंने टारगेट के लिए मारा बिकॉज दीज टेररिस्ट अब वो पथराव नहीं करते हैं. नाउ दे डोंट डू स्टोन पेल्टिंग इज स्टॉप्ड बिकॉज स्टोन पेल्टिंग द गवर्नमेंट व्हेन Mufti government was there, they gave them a lot of money, they gave them lakhs of rupees so that a stone pelt mar ko ye paisa lo aur business karo. So those guys are now doing business, they are fine. But the mindset of Kashmiri Muslim is that they don't want any Hindu to settle there. So what they do these targeting killings. 2-3 महीने में एक हिंदू को मार देंगे, किसी हिंदू गर्ल को मार देंगे जो कि वहां पर जॉब कर रहा है, because they don't want. So there is another, this exodus happened 33 years ago, but there is another exodus happening right now in Kashmir that a lot of us don't know, or you know it but we ignore it. There are a lot of Hindus who are doing jobs there. They are being killed. So all of them have already gone to Jammu and they are settled there. And government of India refuses to give them the job also. Not the job, the salary. They are telling the government of India that give us security. Government of India cannot provide security to each and every individual, that is a fact. But for themselves, they have security. But for the poor Kashmiri Hindu who is working there, there is no security for him. And this is the responsibility of government to provide security to the region. And government of India is responsible for that. I appreciate what Modi government has done there. Article 370 was a wonderful step that they took at that time. And they expected that there were a lot of riots in Kashmir. Nothing happened because government of India was strict. They did a good job there. But currently, They have failed in Kashmir, and I can say openly that government of India has failed us, and they are not able to provide security in Kashmir at all. And we have to speak against it. We love the BJP government as far as I'm concerned. I'm all for Modi, but Modi has failed in Kashmir. Modi has failed. He has the current governor. He has failed Manoj Sinha. Before that, he had Ram Madhav. These people don't know anything about Kashmir. They don't know what is the psyche of Kashmiri Muslims. A person like Yogi Adityanath should be appointed a governor for Kashmir for maybe for 6 months, and then you'll see there will be a drastic change there. So I hope the government of India also listens to what we are telling them, what we are saying them, because the current policy is not working in Kashmir. It's the same thing happening again. Thank you.
Actually, we hear you, and we hear the passion and conviction in your voice and your words, and I'm sure, you know, people are gonna go home today and do some Googling and find out more and find out what the government's really doing and what we can do here and what our government and what our local officials can really do to assist in the cause. So we are about to wrap up, but I just want to do just a few thank yous to a few people today. First and foremost, we want to thank the Palace, Rakesh Bhai and Kalhan. Thank you for hosting us, and they will be providing us with more tea and snacks so we can enjoy and sit and maybe connect with a few people before we run out the door. Our supporting organizations, of course, the Kashmiri Hindu Foundation. The main chapter is in California, and they do a tremendous job out there representing the Kashmiri community. But of course, Deepakji, you've done a great job in the chapter here in making sure that we stay relevant. The Hindu American Political Action Committee, for the work you've done and the local groundwork that you've done with politicians. And we hope that we can have more of them present at future events like this so they can see the greater Hindu community. The United Hindu Front as well for supporting this event and supporting the Kashmiri Hindus, and our elected officials who chose to be here today, and of course our community leaders and the students and the children and the moms and dads who made it a priority. I really sure your children come here today and be present so that people can see they're not going anywhere. It's a death happened, but you're here, you're present, you're alive, and you're thriving in this beautiful country. And we want to make sure that your children are, you know, thriving as well. So, you know, Mahatma Gandhi passed on an important value to Martin Luther King, and we know now is Martin Luther King's quote, but he said, it's not freedom for one, it's freedom for all. And when one person's desire to supersede somebody else's desire to be the best, that's when we know society is crumbling. And every one of us deserves the right to have our religious freedoms exercised. So thank you so much for being here today. We're going to close with a prayer, a Hindu prayer. So if you can all either stand and join the kids as they do the prayer for us. Thank you.
Karacharan kritam va, kayam karmajam va, shavananayam va, manasam va paradam, pihitam va, sarvam etakshamasva, jai jai karunavade, Shri Mahadeva Shambho. I might have performed wrong deeds with my hands or feet. I might have seen, spoken, heard, or thought wrong things. I might have committed a wrong deed, knowingly or unknowingly. May you forgive me of all these wrongful deeds. You are the compassionate one, and may all the glory be to thee. Sarvesham swaste bhavatu, sarvesham shante bhavatu, sarvesham purnam bhavatu, sarvesham mangalam bhavatu. May all experience health. May all experience peace. May all experience contentment and fulfillment. May one and all be blessed. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu nirabhaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, Ma kaschid dukha bhag bhavet.
May all experience joy. May all be free of malady. May all see auspiciousness. May none ever experience suffering.
Om Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu.
Lead me from untruth to truth. Lead me from darkness to light, ignorance to enlightenment. Lead me from death to immortality. May all the people in all the places experience joyousness. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We pray for peace within our body. We pray for peace within our mind. We pray for peace within our soul.
Please don't rush out the door. We'd like to have some photos taken, especially with the kids. Dr. Kusuma, you'd like to say something?
Hello, everyone. My name is Shashi Kusuma. I represent this table where Hindu American Political Action Committee is sitting. And this is a very young organization. I'm not trying to promote it, but I just want to say something here because I've heard several of you say, we all want to be interested and we want to do something, but nobody knows what to do, okay? There's a lot that can be done. I was in the same boat as you are. One simple thing you can do is to support the people who have the time and the commitment to make a difference, like the Kashmiri community, the PAC that's going to support them, and various organizations that are doing great work, grassroots. And so one thing I'd ask all of you is to live your good lives, do your fun things with family and friends, but there's plenty of people in our communities that are very dedicated, are very committed to make a difference. So one thing you could do is to at least support all of these organizations in whatever fashion you can. And one big initiative that I personally am very passionate about is education. And I want to share one tidbit about this Kashmiri situation because I have a very, very dear friend who's an 80-year-old gentleman who's like my father. He's a Jewish American. He plays golf at Grand Oaks all the time, and I do as well. And he and I meet every Sunday morning at 7 o'clock to have coffee and breakfast. It's just one of the things we do. And we talk about a lot of things. He just came back from Israel. He's never been really, and he's a Jewish guy, multimillionaire, does well, and he's retired at the age of 50. And all he does is charity work and goes and plays golf and hangs out. And I was sitting and talking to him recently, and I was speaking about Kashmiri Hindus, and I was speaking about the Kashmir files and the history around it. And he looked at me in awe because he just spoke about Holocaust. And so I felt compelled to share about India and about the Kashmiri exodus or genocide. And he looked at me and said, what are you talking about? And I said, what do you mean, what am I talking about? I'm talking about a genocide that happened in India and it's still happening. And he says, one thing that just shook me to my core, he said, I don't believe you, okay? I want you to understand the difference here of the word choices that are being made. One choice is, I didn't know. Well, many of us didn't know either. There's no excuse for that. I can excuse that because we didn't speak about it. But he said, I don't believe you. And I said, what do you mean, Stu? What do you mean you don't believe me? I said, well, if there was such a big problem, everybody should be talking about it. I'd never in my life in 80 years in America ever heard anybody say anything. And I don't know if I should hang my head in shame or if I should, all of us collectively, Indians and Hindus should hang our heads in shame collectively. But it shook me to my core is that, what do we do when we get together as Indians? It's cultural, right? Mostly we watch cricket, we do this, we do that, we play golf, but what does that even mean? I could do that with anybody on the planet. I don't need to do it with Indians, right? There's nothing special about me playing golf with an Indian just for cultural reasons. I could watch whatever. But when he said, I don't believe you, you should almost like stop for a minute and say, you know what, is this the pathetic state of us in here that we're so apathetic that we don't even speak about this stuff? We don't even celebrate this stuff. We don't discuss it. We don't teach our children. And I felt like hanging my head in shame, when I heard that. And then I really want to make sure that all of you hear that is that some little thing we can do, right, is to at least support all of these organizations. education is a big thing because that's what we heard as well. So we've done a lot of them last year to the HAPAC of Florida. We hope to do a lot more. So please go to the websites of Kashmiri Pandits, Kashmiri Hindus and the HAPAC, and a lot of people are doing a lot of good work. So please get involved in that fashion. Thank you.
If we can gather for a photo, that would be great.
Either or.